Welcome to Storytelling.
This week's guest is a true testament to resilience and reinvention in the hospitality industry. Raised in Fowey, Cornwall, she spent over 30 years building a diverse career, running everything from a fine dining restaurant in Plymouth to turning a 0-star inn in Cornwall into a 3-star success. But her journey wasn't without setbacks. After losing businesses due to unforeseen circumstances, she found the strength to reinvent herself, rebuilding her career with a focus on sustainability and supporting local communities. Now based in Bournemouth, she continues to make an impact. Please welcome Lynne Hughes.
Hello, Lynne, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited.
Lynne, you had a very unusual childhood and one that has shaped you. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
I grew up in a beautiful hotel. My parents bought this little guest house on a river. It was stunning. It was only tiny. And over the 20 years, they grew it into a beautiful 5-star hotel. It was all singing and dancing. All the captains that brought their ships along the river all came for dinner. It was all very gregarious. My mother used to wear different wigs every night, and she was a bit of a Shirley Bassey. She would wear a sparkly dress or a sparkly outfit. She'd be a blonde wig and a Marilyn Monroe, or she'd be like Shirley Bassey or Elizabeth Taylor with her black wig. She was hysterical, really, and she was the life and soul of the whole, what I remember growing up. So she was a very real extrovert, and my father was a quieter man, but he was also an extrovert, but he used to play the drums, and they used to do a little cabaret number. My mother had a beautiful voice, and she would sing and play the tambourine, and my father would have the drums, and we'd have a couple of guitarists. It was a very casual sort of dining experience. So everybody would come for the atmosphere and for the gregariousness of it, really, because it was always a show. I used to deliver morning tea to the residents before I went to school. It was very hands-on, and in the summer holidays, I wouldn't go and play out with a lot of the other children. I'd be in doing the reception. I'd be working all the time. So I did every part of that hotelier type thing. I touched every part of that over the 20 years of growing up. Was really what shaped me into hospitality being so important. And that shaped me into the future. Yeah, it's so inbuilt, it's ingrained.
So you clearly developed good work ethics along the way, and certainly working from a young age, going from school to home, which was basically a work environment. So how did that shape you for your next stage?
I just got engaged when I was 19, and I was due to be married the next year. And that actually took me out of the country. He was in the forces, positioned in Germany. So the very next day after I got married, I went straight to Germany with him, literally the next morning after the wedding. And I lived there for 6 years. What I did do actually while I was 18 to 19, because I knew the industry backwards, I actually wanted to do something completely different. And I went to college and I learned hair and beauty, still welcoming people, still talking to people. It was still a very people atmosphere, but it was in a different environment. So when I got married, I went to Germany for 6 years. And over there, I was working actually as an accountant, funnily enough. It was completely different. But that was my married life. And after those 6 years, we came back to England and I had a baby. And unfortunately, our marriage broke down for one reason and another. And I was on my own with my child. But I think all that shaping of working with people and talking to people and being quite strong in my own personality took me forwards after that. I managed to buy my own house when I was on my own. Beautiful little 2 up, 2 down, with a beautiful garden. And those were very many happy years of my life when I had my child. It was very lovely. When he was 8 years old, I decided that, you know what, I think that's enough of that running around and home life. I was going to open my first salon, and I opened a salon. And the hospitality side stayed with me because in a salon, it's a very busy environment. Ladies are coming and going all day long. And it's the same sort of thing where you welcome everybody. And of course, everybody would be talking and all the stories would flow and the chat. So I had that salon for 5 years. And within that salon, I grew it from just hair. It was a little butcher's when I bought it. I had to completely regut it. Took over the flat upstairs and added a beauty and nails and a gym and grew it to quite a great little health farm, if you like.
What would you say are the main elements that you took with you from the hospitality days to owning your own salon?
I was always going to be working for myself. My father always said, work for yourself because you don't want to work for anyone else. If you work for yourself, you work from your passion and you put every hour in. The work ethic I took from that was the hospitality and the meeting of people, the treating of people, the caring and looking after people, making sure that they were like the king and queen, whether they came into a restaurant or whether they came into the salon. They were the most important person. And that's what I took, really, was how to look after and care for people and make them feel really important.
You mentioned how successful your business was, starting from a hairdresser's, and you turned it into this great, big, wonderful entity. But you decided to get a business partner. Why did you decide to get a business partner, and how did that turn out?
I had a business partner. It was a girlfriend of mine that wanted to join me, and I was fine about that. So I took the business partner on because I was so busy, and she was another stylist as well. So we could do double the work, and we could enjoy the fun together, obviously. And then the future together was obviously having two business partners in a business reduces that workload. The business partner didn't really work out because unfortunately she was taking some money out of the business. And I said to her that, look, after 5 years, this couldn't go on anymore. And I said, one of us has got to go. And whoever it is, I don't mind, but one of us has got to go because I couldn't work with her anymore. And she said, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. So I thought, fine, that's absolutely fine. But we had by then gone to Italy and bought some really expensive weight loss machinery that we had going up at the beauty room. It was quite extensive. So obviously we had a little bit of debt at that time. And I said to her, you take the salon and you take the debt and I will walk away. So that's what happened. She took it on. I walked away. So I had a lovely friend who was from Chile and her name was Margarita. And she had beautiful curly hair. She was very tall. And she was like, oh, my darling. You know, she was beautiful. And she had a beautiful boutique in town. And she said, Lynne, you have to come to me in town. I loved her accent. She was a beautiful lady. And I went to her town and lo and behold, she had a salon upstairs from her boutique, which was empty. And it was a gentleman called Lee Woodward. And he was quite a well-known hairstylist who had left the town and gone and done bigger and better things, but had left the salon completely set up. In the salon upstairs, there was an attic. And I went upstairs into the attic and I thought, you know what? It was full of boxes and rubbish and everything. And I thought, well, I could turn this into a little beauty room. I started this salon and lo and behold, all my customers and my staff that were in the other salon followed me. They came and worked with me and my customers followed me. I thought, what is that? Oh no, it was great. So I was in that salon for 2 years and I set up the beauty room upstairs, which became reflexology and manicure and getting all the beauty side of things going. And so I had that little business up there for 2 years. And after the 2 years, I couldn't stay there any longer because the council had managed to give me a lease, but they said they didn't know how long the lease was going to be. After 2 years, the lease came through because they were building a shopping mall where we were. So I had to leave there, which was fine. But in that time, I'd met a very wealthy guy and he was married. It wasn't something I planned to do, but I was chatting to him one day and he had 2 glasses of wine and I didn't know who he was. And I said to him, "Oh, you're going to drink both those glasses of wine or one of those for me?" It's probably a bit of my mother coming out. And he looked at me and gave me the glass of wine. And so we got talking and he turned out to be quite a property guy. And I said, "Oh, for goodness sake," I said, "I'm looking for a new premises." He said, "I can help you find a new premises." And that's how the whole relationship started. And it just so happened that he happened to own half of the town, which was quite incredible. I didn't know, but he was a big property developer. And this relationship took me to Dubai, Monte Carlo, all sorts of places. It was quite a whirlwind. But at this time, for the years that I was with him, the 4 or 5 years I was with him, he didn't want me to work.
So you went from having your own business, being really successful, and unfortunately, because of planning and everything, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But how did you cope with that transition to being so independent, to meeting someone who says, "I don't want you to work"?
It was a very new thing to me. To be honest, it wasn't something I wanted to do. I saw it as a short gap. I saw it as something because he said, "Come with me and we'll do some traveling." It gave me a feeling of insecurity because suddenly I was reliant on him. And I didn't really like that. It went against the grain, big style, to be honest. It wasn't going to be like that all the time. It was just a sort of stopgap, really. It was just something that happened.
So how did that reliance on someone else work out?
He did look after me and bought me a lovely car. He gave me a lot of allowance and he gave me a very comfortable living. So it didn't sit nicely with me. It really didn't. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't forever. It was a lot of fun and I did a lot of things. And he took me to an awful lot of meetings and I met a lot of bankers and lawyers and I learned an awful lot about how business is done with property. And it shaped me into a character that I am now with my businesses as well, because I know that only deals are done on a Friday. And I know how a lot of things work now that I didn't before. But it was a bit of a traumatic time when he had to go back to his wife, because I then had to put my self-employed head back on and think, okay, I've got to do something for myself. And that's when I bought my first restaurant, because I thought, I'm not sitting back and doing nothing and tapping the window ledge, as I call it, waiting. I'm getting back out there. So I bought my first restaurant after that. And the way I bought my first restaurant was I happened to go for lunch with my mother, funnily enough, in town. We went for lunch and there was this gentleman in this restaurant and we started talking. And he just so happened to be looking for a business partner and he knew nothing about hospitality. And he was looking for someone to work with him to get it going, because he was an engineer. So he didn't know anything about hospitality. And he'd bought this restaurant. And I thought, wow. I said to him, "Do you know what? I'll come and work with you for 2 weeks and see how we get on and see what's wrong, see how we can change it about." I turned that place around to people coming in for lunches, people coming in for pre-theatre dinners, which he never even thought of doing. And he didn't even have a proper chef downstairs, big kitchen. And I thought, you know what? I thought, I want this restaurant. And the ability came up to actually buy it off him, because I said, "Look, I would like to take this off your hands, because you can't do this without me, but I'd take it off your hands." and I bought it for a bargain. Great restaurants, had a lot of people, had a lovely little decking area outside. And I put loads of pots and plants out there, made it pretty. Everybody wanted to sit out there. And I had a chef, and I started to get really busy, and I needed another chef. So I put the word out that I was looking for another chef. And I started interviewing people. And along comes this lovely girl. She came and sat down and she said, "Hello, Lynn." And she was quite gregarious and extrovert as well. We hit it off straight away. And the funny thing was that she said, "You know what? I've been after this restaurant as well." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "No way." She said, "I'll come and work with you. Let's do it together." So obviously it was my restaurant, but she came in and we did it like a partnership in a way. And her uncle happened to own the other half of the town. So my ex owned half of the town in property, and her uncle owned all the Barbican and all the restaurants that had been there for the last 35 years. I said, "No way." And we just laughed about it. And she had a little bit of something to prove, and I had a little bit of something to prove. And we got on a house on fire, and we thought, let's set this place alight and let's go with it and make it really busy. And that's what we did. Eventually, we were so busy in that town because everybody knew we were there. We were both huge personalities. We were both fun. And people could come and have a laugh and eat and drink and eat beautiful food and wine and dine till early hours of the morning. And eventually we started to get a lot of TV personalities. It became a very attractive restaurant for media and radio and personalities to come and have lunch. And it was full of fun and laughter and great people. And they used to be able to come and feel safe.
Lynn, you had this amazing restaurant, but unfortunately you had to move on from this restaurant. Can you tell us what was your transition next?
After 2 years, I just decided I was going to sell it, to be honest. We'd have 2 years of a very fast-paced way of living, being in there 8 o'clock in the morning, working like we did. We had the most beautiful staff, but working till late at night, almost every night, really. It can take its toll. I decided I was going to sell it. Enough was enough. And there was an awful lot of stuff going on in the background as well, which was not very good because of our positions and who I was and who T was. And so I sold it, and I sold it for a lot of money. We decided that we were a team and we'd go on and repeat it again in another town, go to a different place. We started that next business and we called it Bar Carver, and we turned it into a tapas bar where people could sit opposite the beach, drink red wine at night, have canapes, beautiful food and lovely music again. And that's what we did. And again, it was fabulous. What happened then was the start of the downfall, really. It was next to a cliff. There was a big cliff behind us. This cliff started to fall down. It's been there for donkey's years, from 1920 or something. And this cliff started to fall down. And in this town was only one road. And the one road was the only way in and the only way out. And these big boulders fell down onto the road and cut the road off. And so unfortunately, the whole road had to be closed. The whole town had to be shut down. And I used to go into the meetings of the council to find out what's going on. And there were grown men crying, losing their business after 35 years, the fishermen, the restaurants that were there. Absolutely so sad that people were losing their businesses, and we lost our business. Lost so much money from that.
It is a traumatic experience when you lose a business, especially when it's due to natural causes, not even anything of your own doing. And that's why a lot of people in that town were understandably very upset and very distraught to lose their life savings there. So this meant that you had to transition again even further. And luckily for you, you had built up a lot of resilience over the years.
Mm.
So what was the next stage in your journey from there?
We went to London and I met some very scrupulous people there. We'd lost an awful lot of money. I had hardly any money. I managed to meet some really odd people. I don't know how they came into my life, but they were bizarre people. They were gangster people. They were like, I don't know where they came from, but they came into my life. And I was also involved with Pinewood Studios at this time as well. I'd got involved in the 9 to 5 Club. I was part of the founder there. That was a social club within Pinewood Studios that actually started filming. It was like a social reaction in Pinewood Studios on a Thursday evening, once a month, where people could come who were interested in writing, producing, photographing, filming, all that sort of thing. And I got very involved in that because obviously a lot of the media that we'd met down in Plymouth, I had contacts and they mentioned go there and see what's happening. But along came these unscrupulous people. It wasn't a very good time. It was a bad time and we were in a bad place. And we removed ourselves from London, came back down to Cornwall and opened another little inn. Same story. It was fabulous. We took it from no stars to 3 stars. Again, hospitality came in. It was great. And then the brewery, unfortunately, went bust and we had to leave that. So again, we were left with nothing and we were going down a slippery slope and we weren't coping very well. We moved to Bournemouth, 7 miles of golden sandy beach. Why wouldn't you? We sat on a deck chair. I had a glass of wine, Tea had a beer, and we said, what are we going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to start a product. We didn't have the energy. We were a little bit older now. Time has gone on. We've been through a lot. We thought, let's start a product. So everything that the chef had cooked, all the good herbs and ingredients that would have gone into his beautiful fine dining, we put into a product and we called it Herbit. And we made Herbit. We had a commercial kitchen. We sent it to the Taste of the West Awards. We won fabulous gold awards. And it was going great. We started selling to Ocado, to universities. And what happened? COVID. I can't believe it. It's like the get up and the fall down and the get up and the fall down. It's how many times can you keep getting up and going, putting all your energy and resources into something for an outside force to take it off you. Now we're going again. We've just won the awards for 2024 for Gold Awards.
You've talked about, oh yeah, we lost a lot of money, but I want to know from a personal viewpoint, from that emotional inside, what would it take to actually dig deep? Because obviously, all right, it had a monetary effect. What other effect did it really have on you as a person?
It affected my mental health hugely. I actually had a breakdown, to be honest. I had a big breakdown for about 1.5 years where I didn't go outside the door. I wouldn't move. Unfortunately, I took a little bit to drinking a little bit because when something breaks you down like that, you tend to look for an escape route. And my mental health suffered massively. I was a broken person by this stage, gone through so much adversity, I think, that you'd have to take time. And people need that time to sit with themselves and heal. And I think by sitting with yourself, talking to people, getting that spiritual healing that I believe in totally, and mending yourself is so important for someone that has found themselves at the bottom of the barrel, and to try and dig deep and find that again. You've got to dig deep and you've got to start to take notice of yourself, walk along the beach, try and get exercise, try and build yourself up again. And it was building myself back up again, talking to myself, and which sounds a bit mad, but talking to yourself and others and help groups. And there was a lot of people at this stage that had gone through an awful lot of adversity with COVID, and a lot of people were in the same boat.
So, Lynne, what is driving you now? What is making you move forward?
I lost a lot of credibility over the years. I lost a lot. I was at the top and I fell right down to the bottom. And credibility to me is, I'm not talking credibility in the way of money. I'm talking your self-worth. And I'd lost a lot of self-worth. That was what I wanted to regain. I wanted to build back my credibility, that I wasn't hopeless. I wasn't a loser. I wasn't ridiculous or a waste of space. I was perfectly capable. I had just gone through the mill and I needed time to reflect on that and to regain my strength. I'm back to networking again. I'm doing an awful lot of good for the community. I volunteer on Christmas Day. I volunteer through the week for the homeless. I go and cook their dinner for them. And I've humbled myself an awful lot and seen the bottom of the barrel function. And you know what? There's a lot of good in the bottom of the barrel. There are good people. And those people with nothing are the people that will actually help you, because they know what it's like. The people that have got all the money and all the, oh, yes, I'm this and I'm that, they don't want to know, because they look down on you. They think, ugh, well, you look at you, you're down there. But those people at the bottom taught me a lot. They taught me about self-worth, self-esteem, and they said, look, it doesn't matter where you are in life, you are still you at the end of the day. You're a good person, and helping people is something I am still doing today. I love that about myself, that whatever I do, I want to help people, growing businesses.
What advice would you give to someone who may be in a similar situation or knows someone in a similar situation to encourage them to move on?
You must go and seek help. You can go to your doctor, obviously, first point of call. There are people out there, there are mental health people, there are counsellors. There is a big setup now over the years that has built up with everything that's happened to people. There is a big network of help, self-help people who you need to go and talk to, who are on the same mindset, who have been in the same position. And you must reach out. Obviously, if you're extremely desperate, there are the Samaritans who are always there. I've been there. So I came from the top, I went to the bottom, and I'm coming back up to the top. But you know what? You take people with you. That's why I am helping to grow small business. And you must reach out and talk to people. Because believe me, when I was sat there with my head in my hands, crying my heart out, thinking, what has happened to me? Oh, I'm going to cry. There are people that will reach out, and please get spiritual with yourself, because the spirituality, your inner energy is so powerful. That little burning light is so powerful. You don't know how powerful you can be unless you ignite it. And don't let anybody put you down. Don't let anybody ever tell you any different. You follow your dreams and, oh, I'm going to cry. And you follow your path.
Oh, Lynne, I think you hit it on the nail. We have to reach out and we have to help each other, and we have to be there for each other and lift up each other.
Yeah.
Lynne, you have been an amazing guest. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Oh, thank you. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
If you have been affected by some of the issues in today's episode and you would like further details about Lynne, then please follow links in the show notes.